Deep in the burning heat of the Mexican desert, there's a place you would better avoid. A patch of earth where the laws of nature seem suspended. The locals whisper stories to each other, of lights in the sky that don't move for hours, of beings that appear out of nowhere and vanish just as suddenly, of animals born with limbs that don't belong where they are. A place where radio signals simply die, where a US rocket carrying radioactive cargo fell from the sky without a trace, only to be discovered weeks later, buried deep in the earth. Some say this place lies on an invincible network of anomalies, connected to the Bermuda Triangle and the pyramids of Egypt. Welcome to the Zona de Silencio, also known as the Zone of Silence. Here we have a map, and when you look at this map, you can see that the Zone of Silence all the way on the left lies on a line with the pyramids and the Bermuda Triangle. And some believe that it is no coincidence that these places are lined up along these lines. The fact that the Zone of Silence is a very strange place hasn't been known for very long. It only came to light in 1930. Back then, a pilot flew over this area and his name was Francisco Sabaria. He noticed that while flying, his compass spun wildly in circles and various parts of the electrical system failed. Then, suddenly, all the system came back online. The compass worked again, the electrics were restored. He had probably crossed the area causing the issue. The whole situation seemed very strange to him, so he turned and flew in the opposite direction, and it happened again. That's when it became clear to him. Something was definitely wrong with the area he had just flown over. More than 30 years after the pilot first reported that something was wrong in this area, it was investigated more closely by an engineer named Harry de la Pina. This was likely because the area is extremely desolate and largely uninhabited, so it had not attracted much attention before. When de la Pina arrived, the first thing he noticed was that all his electronics failed. Radios and other devices stopped working completely. He could not get any radio reception at all. Because of these strange disruptions, he named the region the Zone of Silence, precisely because it was impossible to send or receive any signals there. De la Pena found this anomaly so fascinating that he returned to the area several times. During these visits, he made a very strange discovery. In the places where he had previously experienced disturbances, where there was no radio reception and no ability to transmit, everything suddenly worked. Meanwhile, in the areas that had functioned normally before, reception suddenly became impossible. Over time, he realized that the zones where the disturbances occurred were moving. This suggested that something on the surface of the Zone of Silence, or possibly beneath it, was shifting. Wherever it was located, there was absolute silence. Following these findings, other electrical engineers also visited the region to investigate, but no one could explain what was happening. Then an incident occurred that finally drew the attention of the US government. In 1970, the White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico conducted a series of tests with Athena rockets to study the effects of re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. On July 11, 1970, one such rocket, an Athena RTV-123D, was launched from the Green River complex in Utah. Its final stage was loaded with radioactive cobalt-57. Upon its return, the rocket was supposed to land at White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico, but it appeared to take on a will of its own. Although it had the exact coordinates for its intended landing, which were later confirmed in the rocket's logs, it turned off course and flew somewhere completely different. The Zone of Silence, where it impacted roughly in the middle. Technically, this should have been impossible. The coordinates were correct, even during subsequent checks, and there was no way for the rocket to decide to land elsewhere. This was not a smart or autonomous system, everything was strictly predetermined. So how could this happen? To this day, there is no technical explanation. What happened next? The Americans contacted Mexico and explained that the rocket had gone off course and landed in their country, carrying a small amount of radioactive material. The teams then set out for the Zone of Silence, only to realize that locating the rocket would not be easy, as maintaining radio contact in the area was impossible. Even the tracking signal which the rocket normally emits after landing could not be received. It took several weeks to finally locate the rocket, which had buried itself deep into the ground upon impact. The Americans then began a cleanup operation, removing not only the rocket but also approximately 20 tons of radioactively contaminated soil and plants. All of this material was transported and safely disposed of at White Sands. But beyond these events, people have observed many other unusual events in the area. Most of these reports come from the locals living around the zone of silence. They frequently describe strange lights moving toward the zone and then hovering in the sky for minutes, sometimes even hours. In addition, there are numerous accounts of unidentified flying objects seen over the area, flying either alone or in formation. Particularly intriguing are the reports of people appearing out of nowhere. These events are said to have occurred several times in a small town located very close to the border of the Zone of Silence. It truly is small, consisting roughly 40 houses, mostly inhabited by farmers. In 1975, two fossil hunters were exploring this area of the Zone of Silence when suddenly heavy rain began to fall. In this region, rain is particularly dangerous as torrents can form that sweep away everything in their path. The hunters knew the risk and rushed back to their vehicle as quickly as possible, but it wasn't enough. By the time they reached it, their vehicle was already caught in the rushing water. They jumped in and tried desperately to pull it out, but failed. Then, through the windshield, they saw two large figures approaching. Both were dressed identically, wearing yellow rain jackets and caps put low over their faces. The figures reached the vehicle and instructed them not to leave. Suddenly, there was a powerful shake, and the car was standing safely on dry land. The two hunters, stunned, wanted to get out and thank their rescuers, but when they looked again, the figures had disappeared, leaving not a single footprint in the mud. Who were these beings? Angels? Aliens? Or just strange hallucinations in a moment of extreme danger? The hunters don't know. One thing is certain, they survived, and they owe their life to two beings who left no trace. One day in 1991, several calls came into the police from towns located near the zone. The callers reported in fear that a gigantic object had appeared in the sky, rectangular in shape and approximately 300 meters long. This object was said to emit a deep drone sound, which seemed to affect the local dogs, causing them to howl and bark while looking up at it. The sighting was reported by many people from different locations, and all accounts agreed. The object suddenly vanished within 2 seconds. The remarkable thing is that the reports came from different locations and from people who couldn't have coordinated with each other. Yet they all described the same thing, a 300-meter long rectangular object, a deep buzzing sound, panicked dogs, and then it vanished. Another report. It all began on a Sunday afternoon. 3 people emerged from the desert, coming from the direction of the Zone of Silence. Witnesses described them as a woman and 2 men, all tall, with light blonde, almost white hair. Not only were they said to be very attractive, but they were also really polite. The only thing they asked was to fill the canisters they were carrying with water from the town well. The surprised residents allowed them to do so. After filling the canisters, the 3 left silently. This encounter is said to have happened twice more. When asked where they had come from, a question posed by a local, the villagers likely expected a simple answer. Instead, one woman reportedly replied, "From above." They appeared 3 times in total and were never seen again. All 3 were described as wearing unusual clothing, like jumpsuits, which seemed completely unsuitable for the desert. According to some reports, there are animals in this area that are found nowhere else in the world. Other accounts claim that familiar animals in the Zone of Silence show unusual mutations, some with extra legs, limbs in unusual places. These kind of events are said to occur frequently. There are also mentions of plants that grow only in this region. The entire area was declared a protected natural area in 1979. Investigations have been conducted to try to explain the strange events reported here, including soil studies and radiation measurements. Despite considerable effort, no measurable cause has been confirmed for the so-called Zone of Silence, where radio signals reportedly fail and electronic devices are said to malfunction. Some researchers have suggested that higher levels of magnetic minerals or uranium in the area could affect radio signals or GPS, but this has not been proven. Similar amounts of these minerals in other places don't cause the same effect. While many of the stories surrounding the Zone of Silence remain unproven and may be legends, some unusual events are real. electronics and radio often fail, and certain animal abnormalities are reported more frequently than elsewhere. Despite modern technology, the cause of these anomalies remain unknown. Some speculate that an unknown type of radiation, not yet understood by mankind, could be involved, possibly explaining the unusual mutations. What do you think about this case? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. See you next time.